Hey, it's Russ from Pilates Guy, and today I'm talking to you about one leg standing balances. I'm going to give you a few options. I'm not going to do this as an exercise along, so I'm just going to give you the basics and the information and a few variations to try and challenge your strength and stability. And I'm just going to kind of demonstrate those for you to then work through and refer back rather than just standing here on one leg talking to you. So basically, I'll just give you the options and tell you what to look out for. Benefits of standing on one leg are huge. They help with a lot of knee issues, ankle issues, stability issues around the hip. They're going to strengthen and build stamina in the legs, going to improve balance, core stability. And if you're standing nice and tall correctly, you're going to help stabilize your pelvis and also it's going to aid your posture as well. So it's really, really beneficial work. Everything else we do is normally quite dynamic. You know, we're doing squats and we're doing them quite quickly. You might do a few squat holds. You might do some one leg work like pistol squats and that type of thing. But not often will you just stand on one leg, building stamina and strength. It's like an isometric hold for the leg. So really, really beneficial for injuries, for stability, strength, balance. It's hugely beneficial. So it can help with all sorts of issues. So there are a few things that you just need to think about before, and we'll start really nice and simple, and then I'll just give you a few extra options. You can build some lunges into your one leg work as well. But yeah, let's go for it. So the first option is literally just standing on one leg. So the important things when you're doing this work are that you keep your pelvis and your spine nice and neutral. So it'd be good if you already understand what that means. So if you already do Pilates, or you can watch some of my other videos on neutral spine. So I like to have people take their hands onto their hips. So the reason you're doing this is because we want a nice line from hip bone to hip bone, and we want a nice neutral spine and pelvis. We don't want to lose that when we transfer weight. So what we want to do is we want to take our weight over into one side. So I'm taking my weight over into my left leg. And then I'm going to take my right foot away from the floor. So you can do this a couple of ways as you take the foot away from the floor. You could either take the foot forwards, keeping the toes gently, very lightly on the floor, or you could just keep the knees in line and let the foot lift away from the floor and stand tall. So what you will have a little bit of weight transfer into the working leg, obviously, but what we want to try and make sure that we do is keep the pelvis in neutral, the spine neutral, so we're not arching the back here, sticking out the tailbone, we're not rounding, and we're not tilting the pelvis, or twisting the pelvis. So when you do lift that leg away, it's the other leg, wasn't it? When you do lift that leg away, you don't hitch up your hip. See, I've got my hands on my hip bones here. You don't hitch up your hip. So you need to keep everything nice and neutral. Once you're happy you've done that, you can just relax your arms down by your sides, keep your shoulders back and down, and keep thinking lengthening up through the top of your head. And you literally just stand here on one leg. A couple of other things to think about. You don't let your knee lock out. If you let the knee lock out, all the pressure goes into the knee joint. We don't want to do that, and knees are unlikely to last as long as we do anyway. So we want to keep the knee nice and soft. So you don't have to bend it, but just don't lock it out, and that means the muscles are going to do the work. The other thing we want to try and do is keep that weight distributed across your foot nice and evenly, from big toe to little toe, all nice and even, and just try not to clench the toes into the floor. Just try and keep that weight nice and even across the foot. And you basically just stand here for 1 minute. You'll take your other foot to the floor, bringing it back hip distance and neutral. Keep your hands on your hips, you take the weight over into the other side, and then you can take those toes gently forward or back behind you, keeping those knees in line. Trying to stand tall, knees soft, weight distributed evenly, and do use your core. If you stabilize your upper body when you're balancing, it's going to help make it easier to balance. It's going to improve your core stability, he says, as he starts wobbling around. But again, just a minute on each side, and then you'd relax. So there's a couple of options there. It's just taking your foot forward, keeping your toe lightly on the floor, but you could always take your foot off the floor. You could always let your foot hover. That's another option altogether. So you can let your foot sit behind, standing tall, or you have your toes lightly in front, or you can let your foot hover just above the floor. Physiotherapists tend to recommend brushing teeth on one leg, especially where people tend to have falls, maybe slightly older, although since lockdown and COVID, people have been younger. People sort of more towards middle-aged than elderly have been finding that they are having falls, and people of all ages, because we're more sedentary and we have been sat down a lot more, it means we're losing balance and stability. So it's more and more common. So it's good to do this work. So brushing your teeth on one leg is a good idea. So another option that I like to build into my sessions, which is just a little more challenging in terms of the balance work, is you can, first of all, you can do your one leg balance, and you could lift the knee up in line with your hip. So you're just bringing your knee all the way up in line with your hip. But what we just want to make sure of when this happens is, number one, the knee doesn't decide to lock out, and number two, we don't start to lean back or stick out the tailbone or tuck the tailbone under. So we're not arching or flattening. We're staying neutral, we're staying tall. You can, once you're in your neutral, tall position, you can take your arms out to your sides or just relax them or keep them on your hips. And we just want to try and make sure we've got a reasonably straight line from hip bone to hip bone. You can adjust, it's fine. You just want to find that neutral and keep it, keep strong in the core, stay tall. And this is another option, is just standing on one leg, and obviously keep swapping sides. I probably do around 5 rounds, a minute on each side roughly. Very rough, you know, depends on your strength, ability, balance and everything else. If you need to be near a wall to do your balance work to begin with and then gradually build up so that you're not near the wall, that's a good idea. So we've covered a couple of levels, yeah, just taking the foot back, foot in front or knee up in front of you. And I've given you some ideas of little workarounds to help you work on this. Now, the next level that I would go to, and I'll show you side on, everything's the same as what I've shown you here before. We can take the one foot forward, so you can have your toe on the floor, or you can have the foot hovering just above the floor, or you can bring the knee up. Remember, it doesn't affect the rest of the body, okay? We can hinge at the hips. So you literally hinge over at the hips, keeping a neutral spine. So your posture from crown of the head to the tailbone is the same as when you were stood up. From this position, hips and shoulders are square onto the floor. You can let your arms hang, or you can keep them on the hips, that's up to you. You squeeze your bum cheek and you lengthen that leg behind you, lengthening, pushing those toes away from you. Now, you can either do that from the knee high position, or you can keep your toe on the floor and just run it along the floor behind you. Whatever you need to do to enable you to do this, but all the weight is in this front leg. We're loading the front leg. We're keeping neutral spine, including the neck, chin tucked, core strong. If you are lifting that leg, you've really got to squeeze your glutes. You've got to squeeze that bum cheek really tight to stabilize. We need to make sure hips square, shoulders square, weight mainly through the heel, or at least balance, not clenching the toes. The knee is soft, we're squeezing the core, and it'll be about a minute's hold. And at the end of that 1 minute, you bring yourself up tall, bringing the leg through, and then you put the leg down. So it's all about that stability and control at the end. So okay, minute on each side, coming up nice and controlled at the end of that. The last option that I tend to use in my sessions is to bring a lunge into exactly what we just did there. So you would transfer your weight over, bringing that leg off the floor, either high or keeping the toe on the floor, and you'd hinge just like I've just shown you. But that toe would need to come to the floor, okay? We need that toe to be lightly on the floor. And from this position, maintaining this position of the neck and the rest of the spine, we would lunge, all the weight in that front leg through the heel, and then we push through the heel to come back up. And we could do several repetitions. So if you're just starting off, you might just do your 1 repetition, lengthen that leg, bring it through tall, put the leg down and swap sides. You might want to up it a little bit, so you might want to take that weight over, lifting the knee or keeping the toe on the floor, whatever you're working with, it's up to you. Hinging, lengthen the leg behind, toe touching the floor lightly. You might just do 2 reps. And then bring yourself back out of this. Now what I like to do to really work on my client's stability, balance, control, is to build a little set, drop sets into this almost without resting. So what I tend to do a warm-up set, which is just 1 each side, just to get them into it, like I've just shown you now, basically, just those 1 each side. Then what I tend to do is get them to do a set of, we'll come into start position and we'll do 2 lunges, trying to keep control and not wobble around too much. So we do our 2 lunges and then we'll come through tall, but we don't put this leg down, okay? We just hinge again from neutral, lengthen that leg behind, and we do 3. And then we lengthen the leg behind, we bring it through tall. And then we do 4. And so on. Building up without ever putting that leg down in front. Trying to keep everything square, everything controlled. Neutral pelvis, neutral spine, core strong. We would come up, we would bring it through, and we just keep going without putting that leg down until you've done as many as you want. So I tend to take them through a set of, after the initial 1 lunge each side, I'll take them through 2, come up, go back down, do 3, come up, go back down, do 4, come back up, back down, do 5, and then come up, and then put the leg down and rest. So you do your 2, 3, 4, 5 without ever putting that leg down. So you come down, you do 2, like I've just shown you, and then you do your 3, never putting that leg down. So that's the routine I tend to use. And my clients are all different levels in group sessions. 1-to-1's different, but they're all different levels. So I'll have people who are just going through each round, just standing on one leg and trying to work on, how much they can maximize standing on one leg, maybe near a wall. I'll have other clients who are going through all the lunges with complete control better than I can do it. So you stick with the level that's good for you. Do the same on one side that you do on the other. So do try and keep it nice and balanced from one side of the body to the other. Other than that, just go for it, play around with it, try and do a little bit of practice every day or every other day, just to build up that strength, it builds up that stamina. It's going to help your sports performance, it's going to help with injuries, posture and core stability. So it's really, really good stuff to do. Hopefully that's useful. Please give me a shout if you've got any questions at all, and thanks very much for watching the video.